So this is a Lofrans Cayman 88 Windlass that we've recently removed from our boat. And as you can see, we've got one or two things that we need to tackle here. The first problem that we've got is the casing. So unfortunately there's a gasket which is here. This gasket kind of sits around the base of the windlass. And the reason this has been removed from the boat is because the way that this mounts into the boat, the base plate that this actually sits on has delaminated. So that's in another video, and there'll be a link to that in the corner right now. But as we removed this from the boat, we also noticed that there was some corrosion. So this part is 20 years old. We have actually got some quite excessive corrosion, particularly around this bolt on the corner here, which is, well, there's no metal left. So we kind of thought, well, we'll bring it home. It needs servicing anyway, so I got myself a service kit. And then I thought to myself, well, what am I actually going to do with it? Am I going to service it? Is it worth saving? You can buy parts for this. You can buy the casings, you can buy the back part, and obviously all of the gearing and everything else that's inside the unit. The reason that I think that it has got some excessive corrosion is partly the way that this base plate is designed. It has a lip that sits around the corner here, and any water that sits actually gets trapped between that base and the bottom of the windlass. Now, whether we reinstall it with that on, I don't know at this stage, but yeah, that's basically what's happened. And over the years, obviously, that corrosion has started, and it's got quite bad. What do we do with it really? Do we buy a new one at about £1,100, £1,200? Do we refurbish it? Do we get somebody to weld the case? We've had a bit of a look around, and we've decided that we are going to refurbish this. The actual insides of it is fine, the motor's fine, all the wiring on it is all fine, and it works without problem. The gear oil needs changing, and as I say, I've bought the service kit to go through a lot of the replacement parts, like little washers and other bits, because we're going to need those anyway. And I've actually bought a replacement housing at the front. And that's here. So if I put the two side by side, you can see instantly we've got a problem. Well, I thought we got a problem until I realised I'd got this the wrong way around. So I was just taking some photographs of it and saying I'm going to have to send this back, but actually it goes that way. So the motor mounts onto the back of this. And then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to strip all the gearing down inside and everything else, and then remount it. There's a plate that goes on the front, and that's underneath that gypsy. And then obviously on the opposite side we've got a rope winch that we can pull in a rope road with. Motor goes on the back of it, so you can just have a look at the back. That's where the motor goes, and then this casing goes on the back of it. And as I say, that inside part is all filled with oil. This is where you top the oil up on the front of them, but we've replaced that. It's a good quality machine part. We're going to have to put some new bolts in the bottom, as you can see there, and then this will get remounted on the boat. And then we're going to have a look at what we do with this gasket, and whether we actually fit this gasket back on or not, because my concern is that, yeah, we can keep an eye on that more, and obviously maybe it just was sat in salt for a bit of time, and that's what did it. But yeah, we don't want to be trapping salt water in there and for it not to be able to escape, and then just basically start corroding the fitting again, as it's done here. How did I come to find out about the spares? Well, I contacted Lofrans support, so you can go onto their website and basically submit a ticket. I kind of expected that I would either deal with them direct, or I'd be put in touch with a supplier in the UK. Now, I know Jimmy Green's obviously one of the people that do stock these parts, and he's got a really good website that you can go on and you can have a look at which parts you can buy. So you can buy things like this on their own. This is a single on its own item, and then you can buy things like this, which is the service kit. Now, a lot of the parts in the service kit, as detailed on that website, you can see on the back here, it shows you what you get in that service kit. You get a lot of the rubber seals and the gaskets and all that sort of stuff, a lot of replacement parts basically. So you can buy some parts as a service kit and some parts on their own. Now, I was going to buy this, it was about £430 or £440 delivered. So I went through the Lofrans support ticket method and got in touch with a company called AR Peachment. Now, they basically responded to that support ticket with a quote straight attached to it, which was less. So Basically they sent me a link for a secure payment, paid through that, parts arrived, so that saved me a bit of cash. So what we'll do next is we will go through this and we'll strip this out and we'll have a look at it, about how we get this apart, and then we will rebuild it in the new casing. Okay, so that's a 22. It's not very tight. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. So let's find out. Okay, fine. So I'm going to extract the oil with this. That's going to make things a bit easier. Probably would have been easier just to tip it straight out. There's only half a litre in them, as I understand. Whether there's still half a litre. Okay, there's not half a litre in ours. So that's something else that we need to just make sure we check a little bit more often. They use like a heavier gear oil than what you would normally find in an engine. I think it has to be 80 or 90. So like you'd normally have like 1540 in a car, something like that. Or a diesel engine maybe. So in the service kit there's lots of little like rubber washers and things, so I'm not too worried about damaging a lot of these sort of washers. This washer on the end, that's all in the service kit. So we'll just start to strip it down really and not worry too much about that. We'll do that at a later date. Also give all these parts a bit of a clean up at the same time. So these side bits, these are held on with, that's a 13 I think. Okay. Okay, so far then we've had, 22 on the front, 13 on these bolts at the side, and then this one that stops that can lock the Gypsy, that is a 17. So as you can see here, let me just clean this up. There's a woodruff key in there. Hopefully you can see that. There's a woodruff key on part of that. So if this was to get overloaded, the idea is that that key breaks and then that would spin. So if you find one of these and that is spinning around, your Gypsy's just spinning with no grip. Obviously, first of all, tighten up the whole clutch mechanism that's on the side of it here, which is that plate, and this obviously on the end of it to tighten it up. But obviously if this is all still spinning, then chances are that that key there is broken. Or something further inside the windlass, unfortunately, but with a bit of luck it'd just be that. That's spring loaded, that is. Okay. Again, similar setup, there's a key on the spline in there, so that's how that comes out. So we're going to have to pull these keys out, I think, before we can get these off. And see a way of taking that off without. There's 2 springs in there, so that keeps some force against that side, and then that just locks into there. See, that bit can come off, but that can't pass the key, so the key's in there now. So the keys are part of the kit. You get the keys, so that's okay. We'll give them a bit of a pull. Okay, number 1. At the rear of it, we've obviously, you've got these 2 bolts on the back, these 2 nuts that go onto these studs, and on those they've got a plastic washer, or a nylon washer I should say, and then a metal washer, and then the actual bolt on the end of it. Now, I thought that you could take the wiring out of it, but you can't. So I'll just open this up. Again, lots of salt in everything, as you can see, so that's not good. We'll give that a good clean out. Here's a gasket around the top. That's perished, look. So that needed replacing soon. There's a piece of that actually missing, so that's probably how the water's got in there. Thankfully, the motor and the connections are all in really good condition. So basically a couple of Allen bolts in the back of that, which we can confirm with the new casing. So if you look on the new casing, you can see that there's 3 Allen bolts in there. And that's how that comes out. Look like 5mm. Three of them. Oh, of course, that one's solid. And then these 2 long bolts, they're actually again on sort of studs that are screwed into the back, so we'll need to take those off. But what I'm going to try and do next is get some tissue underneath it, because chances are there's still some oil left in it. I don't think I got all of it out. And then we'll loosen that piece off. And then if there is any oil, hopefully we can just get the rest of it then. Yeah, so as I say, the wiring's actually fixed into the motor this end, and you just get some flying leads, and they'll be connected in your boat somewhere. If you probably look in the other video that we've done about how we removed it and why we were repairing the base, you'll probably see that we had to disconnect those. Well, we did disconnect them. Okay, they're out. Okay, is this gonna just pop apart? Let's find out. Yep. Okay, so there's the motor. Taking a bit closer. There's the motor. There's another Woodruff key. So again, that could be another sheared part. And then as you can see, the wires then go through the bottom of the unit there. And then this is obviously where it drives the gearbox in the back of here, and then turns something rotating this way into something rotating the other way. Basically does a 90-degree turn. But there's the motor itself. Give that a bit of a clean up, but that's all okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get rid of this bit, because we need to focus on this part. So we're going to pull these wires through one at a time. Try and help them through. And then we'll pop the motor somewhere safe, and we'll come back to that later. We'll give that a bit of a clean up, but we'll come back to that later because there's nothing actually wrong with the motor. Okay, and they're out. I was just concerned that there was a gasket on the back of there, which is why I put the tissue underneath, but actually this is all sealed. So yeah. Okay, so these need to come off next. I do like it when they use all different sizes. No, smaller, it's a 10. Okay, I'll take that back. We have it a 10 before. Okay. Okay, let's get some some grips on that now and try and give that a little bit of a twist, because that's solid. I don't really want to back that thread down anymore. We'll give this a quick try first. It's probably not the best way of doing this. Yeah, it's gone. Not that tight. Okay. They've come out. Okay. Right. So the way I'm going to approach this now is I'm going to go from this bit. I'm going to undo these Allen bolts here, and I'm going to take this out this way. I don't think there's any other way of doing this. So we'll go back to Allen key. Same size Allen key. Oh, they're tight. Oh, okay. Right, I'm going to put some releasing agent, some penetrating fluid on this, and I think we're going to come back to that. They are very, very tight, and I do not want to shear them off in there because I need this out. So I'm going to give it a spray, I'm going to leave it, and then I'll come back in a bit. Okay, just in terms of a bit of an update then, so as you can see, I've managed to remove 2 of these, and 2 of them are really, really stuck, and unfortunately the head has come off this one, so the Allen key is now spinning in there. So I'm going to try a larger Allen key. I've got some slightly odd sizes somewhere, so I'm going to just try a different one. There's more penetrating fluid on both of those, but they are stuck. Now this thing I have had a bit of success with, so I've got 2 screwdrivers in this, 1 at each side, and then I've been able to lift this off. So that was just a little bit stuck. Just grab my gloves. There was a little bit stuck, and it's a little bit stuck again. There we go. But it does come off, so you can remove that without removing that woodruff key. It did just slide over, which is a little bit tight, so that's come off. And then obviously now we can grab that with a pair of pliers. Let's grab a pair of pliers. So we can now get here and take this out. So there's another one of those. So that is all ready now, apart from this plate. This shaft I don't think can slide out because, again, there's under here there's another cog that's on another woodruff key to actually bring that out. So really I think the next step is to get this plate off, take this out, and then we can get in there and actually pull this, and it should then all lift out from the other side, because there's nothing holding it now on the other side. But the problem now is these, whether we have to drill these out. Thankfully they are in the service kit, but obviously I need that plate. So I'm just having a bit of a think about what to do there. Right, just to give you a bit of an update. So when you last saw us, these 2 are out. This one was spinning and this one was spinning. I've had to drill that one out, so hopefully I've got that, because it's been a pain. This one was so difficult to try and drill out that I thought, right, I'm going to try something else here. So I've angle ground a Allen key head, bolt down to try and shape it and get it a little bit different. Didn't work. I've just found a 5.5. Well, I actually found a 5.5 one of these. That didn't work either. But I've also found a 5.5 to go into a socket. Now I don't know why, but that one was slightly bigger, so I've hammered that into there. You can't hammer these in. So I've hammered that in and it's gone. So thank God for that, because I was having a real difficulty with that. Like I say, I've tried so many different things and it's been soaking in penetrating fluid, but finally it's gone. It's just, the stainless has just welded itself into the aluminium. But it looks like we've cracked that. The difficulty is going to be this one now. So whether we've got enough, whether we've cut enough of the material away to actually get that undone. So let me whip this off and let's go from there. You can just see there's just a mess of tools and drills and everything else that I've been trying. It's been so difficult to try and get that out. So we'll have a quick go with this. Right, so we've now got the bolts out, including the drilled one. Well, it's still stuck in there, but it's okay. So now what we need to do is remove this plate. And to remove this plate, you can see here that there are some additional holes in it that you can screw. They're actually threaded. So what you do is you grab one of your bolts and you fit that into here, and then what you can do then is you can just put some pressure to pop this plate out, because obviously, like with everything else, that's going to be pretty well welded in there. So it's probably had a few years. It's got a seal on the back of it anyway, and it's obviously got a seal here, so you've got to somehow wind this out. So that's kind of what we're doing next. We're going to turn it on its side, and then we will do that. There we go. And there's a little bit of oil left. Okay. So that hasn't gone all that well. Okay, so we can take these parts out now. We'll drop this on a bit of paper because there's still quite a bit of oil left in the bottom. You can see from the back that they're basically just coming straight through, and then there are the bolts, and then obviously that is the one that's stuck in for me. So, but that doesn't matter because that's stuck in the outer casing, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay. So the next step is to start knocking this out of here. That's gone. And there, I'm going to just get rid of this because this has still got a bit of oil in it. There is the centre piece that obviously we've been trying to get out. So that all looks to be in really good condition. There's a big spring on that. Some circlips there. I'm not going to take any of that apart because I don't need to. We will just give it a bit of a clean up. And we'll just put it safe to one side, but that's absolutely fine. No problems with that at all. All the gears are intact. Okay, so this is now what we're left with. And you can see that there's a bearing pressed in the end of there. Hopefully you can see that. Yep, you can. So we're going to have to push that bearing out. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe with a big socket and something and a clamp. I don't have a bearing press or anything like that, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And then I've got to work out how this piece comes out. So this is the back of the worm gear. So hopefully you can see that. That is what the motor turns. So the motor turns that, and then obviously that spins that large cog that we've just pulled out of there. So I've got to work out a way of getting that out of there. So I've picked myself up a circlip pair of pliers, I guess they're called, and you can see the difference. So the ends on these are much smaller. So we'll remove this now. That's so much easier. So much easier with the correct tools. So that's out, and then with a bit of luck, this whole assembly now here, it's just in the bottom there, this should just slide out. So if we put it that way, and it does. Okay, so there's the gear. There's a bearing on that. That all looks fine. That's lovely and smooth. There's nothing wrong with that, so we won't touch that. So on the other end, this sits on there, and then that is held in. That's going to be a little bit of a pain to get out of there. Okay, so that's how that's built up. So what we've got left now inside is we've got this front bearing housing here that's pressed into there. You can see that's moving. I don't know how we're going to get that out yet, but we need to obviously remove that. Maybe that will just push out. And the other bearing that we've got to try and deal with is this one that's in here. Now whether we can just heat this up slightly and then remove these, or we've got to actually order these new, because these are pushed into this fitting. They're pushed in that way and that way. So we just need to have a look at what we can do on those next. So just through a bit of careful levering with a screwdriver, I've managed to get that out. I've done a little bit of damage to the face of this, but I'm not bothered about that. But I don't believe I've done any damage to the bearing itself. So that's all looking pretty good. So we'll yeah, that actually wasn't in there that tight. It's just it's pushed. It's a push fit. And I'm going to try the same with the. Let me put that safe there. I'm going to try the same with this bearing on the back. Now there's a bit of difference with this one in the fact that, again, this is pushed into the fitting, and really if I use a socket like I'm planning here, I'm actually pushing on the bit of the bearing you really shouldn't push on. You should push on the very outer skirt. That's how a bearing sort of press works. It uses the outer face of the bearing, so it uses this part here, not the middle, and I'm really hitting the middle with this. But if it's not in there too solid, then we'll see. If not, I'll have to just replace that bearing. But I'm just trying to cut costs. It's as simple as that. So what I'll do is I might try and push it out with a clamp, see if that works, and just wind the thing out by putting some pressure rather than hitting it with a hammer. So we'll give that a try next and see if that works, and then basically we'll go from there. Let's try that way. I don't think this method is going to work. Oh, it is? Yep, it's going. There we go. They're not in there that tight. I don't think I've done any damage to that one either. Just get my other glove, because we've still got a bit of oil, unfortunately. Where have I put that? Oh, it is alright. Yeah. yeah, it's come out. Like I say, that isn't the correct way of doing that. You shouldn't push on the centre of a bearing, because you're putting the force in the wrong place. You're supposed to use the outer face of the casing, the bit that is holding the bearing into whatever it's holding it into, not the centre, because that's putting pressure on all of the little balls and all the other mechanism that's inside of there. It's actually got an arrow on which way that should go, I think. I think that's what that's meaning there. So we'll make sure that that's pushed back in the same way. Can't see why that would be like that, but yeah, it wasn't in there all that tight. So yeah, I think we saved that. Another £40. So I mean, yeah, you could go to a bearing shop and get the right one. That would probably be cheaper than just buying it from Lofrans and Jimmy Green or wherever. I mean, it's just a stainless steel bearing, but you would have to get all the sizes right. Sometimes the information is printed on the outside of a bearing, not always. So that now leaves us with hopefully an empty shell. I'll just retrieve my my socket. So yeah, we're in a really good place there. So this is done now. We're not going to utilise any of this again. Yeah, really good. Okay, so we'll start the rebuild. I have got to buy the gasket still. And then I'll go through and I'll clean up all the parts now, and then we'll do a reassemble, and we'll put it back together, and hopefully it'll work. So I've just popped my bearing in some gear oil. This is the gear oil, SAE 80W90, which was what I think is recommended for these, and by the looks of what I can see, that seems to be the right one. So we've got that. Here's our maintenance pack with all the various bits in, so we're going to get that open now. I've got a diagram up on the wall there of the bits that I need and what to put back together where. I've cleaned obviously all the parts, so we should be in a good place. Start putting the thing back together. A lot of rubber washers, so we've got a lot of the washers and other bits and bobs in there. And then this basically is a bag of bolts, circlips, woodruff keys, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to take those out because I know that they are obviously the new bits. And then as you can see, I've cleaned everything up as best as I can. And then we'll start reassembling it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the bearing back in here. As I say, I've just had this kind of in a bit of oil. Just make sure it feels okay and there's nothing stuck in the bearing itself. Feels good. So I said in the past that I don't have a bearing press, so I've pushed the bearing in using my clamp and a large socket on the outside, and then I've just tapped it. So this is, again, it's not the right way to do it really, but if you have a listen now, it sounds different. Actually, it slightly rings, it rings a little bit. And I can't feel any space now on this side of the bearing at all, so it's in there. Okay, so back inside, I'm going to work on this piece next. So I don't have any spares of this. This is one piece that doesn't come with any spares other than seals on the end, but these metal pieces, again, I'm just going to wash them in some oil. Put some clean oil here. Give that a wipe over. So that is the bearing on the back. feels good. My tissue. That's the back washer. Same with that. Yeah, that's good. Right, this guy. Let's give him a bit of a dip in there as well. So he just slots in the bottom. I think I'm going to have to just tap that in as well. Okay. Hear the difference? Not putting a lot of force on that, but it's gone. That's in there. Okay. So the first thing to do is to put the bar in, the cross member with the big gear on, which we've done, and that spins nice and free. Now, due to how the cog is shaped on the back, this has to be dropped in this way afterwards. So a little bit tricky because you've got the washer on the end. So with a bit of luck, we can just pop that washer on. I can just hold that. So that washer needs to go on the back of that piece there, which is now in alignment. And then you drop this piece in. And once it's got itself where it needs to be, you should be able to spin that dead easy. And this should slowly turn. It will turn really slowly because it's a worm gear, but that's how it should be. That's turning nice and free now. I can turn that with my finger. So that's it. That's it. Okay, so next, let's put the circlip on the back. And that is in. And that holds the whole assembly. Now nothing will come out now. And obviously you can't turn this because it's a worm gear, but hopefully you can hear that. But you can turn it from here, and that's exactly how it should be. Perfect. Okay, happy with that. Right, now I'm not gonna, should we think about putting seals in? So that's new. Let's put this side on next, because I don't think we need to go in there again now. And then we can start filling it with some oil. Okay, so on this side then we've got the plate. We now need, get rid of that, we now need the rubber ring, which I think is folded up in this kit. It is. So there's the rubber ring. This has all been cleaned ready, so that goes on the outside of there. That makes your oil seal. We're going to clean this bearing with a bit of oil. That'll just run through. Yeah, that feels good. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, nothing on the inside of that. Nope. So that then can just slot on the outside. These are a little bit of a pain just to... There we go. And line that guy up. Then we've got oil seals that go on the outside of all of these, so these will drop onto here like that. You would think I live near an airfield, I really don't. Okay, so he's gone. Right. So now we've got a lot of these oil seals. We've got 3 oil seals in total. 2 regular sized and 1 slightly bigger. Now I think that bigger one is on the back. It is. These are the same size here. I will just double check. So that oil seal is 319, and I feel the one side is a 319. Yes, it is. So these 2 oil seals are 319. So we'll place them on there. I won't push them in just yet. And the back one is a different size. This is I think that says 313. So he goes in there. Okay, so these longer ones, these 3 longer ones, they must be for the motor, because there's 4 of this type, and they must be for here. Okay, so that's fine. Right, we need a bit of Tef gel on this. Yeah, okay, let's go get the Tef gel. So I've got a bit of lithium. I've got a bit of lithium grease. I'm not sure that's the right stuff actually for the outer components, but I've got Tef gel as well. So I'm putting Tef gel on these bolts because these are stainless going into aluminium, and at some point I'd like to undo this again. So we're going to put Tef gel on these. Okay, that's that on. So it's actually quite difficult to get the O-rings back in place, because obviously you don't want to hit them with a screwdriver or anything like that, and finding a large socket to go over there and then to be able to slide over all that is pretty much impossible. So this is off the Hoover. So I've just put that on there like that and just give that a little tap just to make sure that obviously that is seated properly, and it distributes the force a little bit better. That's just a bit of rubber off my mallet, but yeah, it's just popped them in much better than before. So happy with that, and I can still turn this, so that's good. So yeah, that's feeling fine. So let's carry on. So we've got that tightened down, that's that plate on, O-rings on, so we're on to the outside bits now. So we've got a couple of O-rings left in there. So we've got these clutches, so if we spin it round the same way as the diagram, which is that way, then on this side we've put that in, so the next piece to go on is this. So this is where I'm going to start putting, I think, a bit of my grease. Okay, it's nice and free. This clutch plate is next, and that goes into there. Okay, and then this drum is next. Now those springs line up with those parts there, and we need a woodruff key. So we need to put a woodruff key in, so we'll put a new woodruff key in because we get those in the kit as well. Make sure it's the right size. That way round. Put a bit of grease on there. And on those 2 faces. Okay, so that's all lined up now. Just need to tighten this up, which was a number 10. Put a bit of grease on here. Then it's a case of these guys substances out of plate. Yeah, because I've had to spin on that bit, but not that one. Okay, so that's that one. And then on top of that, we have this guy. And then on the end of that, there is a rubber washer to stop that little piece coming off. And put a little bit of grease on this. And then I'm going to put Tef gel on the front of all of this. There we go. Smush that together. Okay. Those are the 3 bolts that are slightly longer than the last lot. Let's get some more of this stuff on there, because if we ever want to take these back out, hopefully they won't be welded into place. Again, I'm not too sure how much of this stuff you should put on. I'm going pretty heavy because I want to be able to undo it again. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do, I'm not quite sure, but you probably only need a little tiny bit. So if it's not me that rebuilds this in the future, I hope I've put enough on. That's all I'm going to say. So there's not much else really to show you on this little bit now, other than when we start filling it with oil and putting a few bits back. But obviously this is the bottom piece that helps guide the chain. So that's just 2 bolts and a washer. So that's just going to get fixed onto there in 2 seconds. The little chain lock's quite an interesting piece because obviously you've got your main bolt. You then have this kind of brass fitting, so and an O-ring. And the reason you have that is to stop this just sliding around. So how this works is, you can see on the back that that's got a beveled kind of edge on there. So the bolt and the brass fitting go together like that with the place for the O-ring at the back. That then all slides in there, and obviously that fills that space, so the bolt then is the right way, is the right size for this piece, and it sort of sits together like that. And then the O-ring goes in the gap at the back, and then when you compress that down, that's what gives that little bit of friction, and that then just all bolts back on there. But it's really hard to see on the diagram, that is. But that's how it goes, and you can feel it already. It just adds that little bit to stop it sliding around. So just thought that one was worth sort of showing you. This isn't really, this is just bolts. Got an O-ring to put on that plastic piece at the front. Got the 2 rods to put in on the back, and then we'll come back when we get a little bit further along. So I'm at the point now of putting the new studs in the bottom of the casing. And how I'm doing that is I'm using 2 nuts on the end of the stud. Tighten the 2 nuts together and then just giving it a little bit of a nip. And then after that we can then back the nuts off so that we can put it in the boat. I don't want to damage the threads, you see. I'm trying to sort of keep them as best I can. I've also put the Tef gel between the 2 dissimilar metals. I'm not over tightening this, but I need to just obviously make sure that I can undo the nuts without you know, the stud actually coming back out. So that one isn't quite tight enough yet. So I've just topped it up with gear oil, half a litre in the front, and you can just about see it just inside. I don't know whether you'll be able to see that, but you can just about see the gear oil just sat about there. So that seems to be about right. Now, one of the things they don't give you in the service kit is a new washer. So the washer that sits around this here, they don't give you one of those, so just remember to retain that if you're buying the service kit, and that obviously just blocks that up there. So that's it, it's all back together. In terms of movement, I can move it, I can wind it backwards and forwards from that. I can't really test it. I could obviously just touch these on a battery, but it's 1,000 watts, so it's like 80 or 90 amps to sort of fire this thing up. So if you tap that on a battery, that is a lot of current to go through something, and you know, I could actually weld that to the battery, so I don't really fancy doing that. So we'll probably just take it back to the boat and wire it up and just hope for the best, really, rather than, you know, doing some damage to the battery or to the windlass itself. In terms of its movement and everything else, it all seems absolutely fine, and it's looking really good. So the next step will be to fire it up on there and make sure it all works.